As with all projects, I start by procrastinating. But eventually you have to just sit down and face the blank page. Best way to start is just to draw some rough thumbnails, especially when I don't have any idea of what I'm going to put on the cover. Obviously, going with a werewolf is fairly on the nose. Thinking through a vulture and a carcass, also fairly on the nose. What I will do generally is I will write out the title, in part to not forget letters, but also to get a sense for how much space the words will take in the design, and that's what these rectangles are representing. Just helps me to know how much space do I need, how do I lay them out in relation to each other. And sometimes you've got to just follow these rabbit trails. So here I am drawing the carcass, and then I get the idea like, oh, the vulture could be sitting on his back. That would be really weird. That neck is crazy. And then some further sketches on the what would the guy look like laying there. And I don't end up using any of these, but when it comes to the creative process, you just sort of have to go with it because you don't always know. It does help to have some peeps. Reference is important, especially when you're drawing something you're not familiar with. I don't know why I felt the need to print it on over the top of musical notes, but that's what we had in our scrap pile. And you can see already I'm getting pretty close to what the final product looks like. So here I'm trying to figure out, okay, like if the hand is laying on the ground, what's the angle? So I did a couple sketches there, just trying to figure out the angle. And the last one here that I'm working on really comes in pretty close to what I want. So then it's time to go ahead and sharpen up the blue pencil and get after it. And I use this blue pencil because it's real easy to get rid of the lines in Photoshop after it's been inked. So you'll see that step coming up. I'm not too worried about messing up on the inks. For one thing, they kind of are supposed to look, a little messy. That's sort of part of the point. And if I do mess up, I'm going to go ahead and make some fixes in Photoshop once I scan it in. So you'll see I messed up his knuckle and the lines for his muscles right there in the back of his hand, but I'll fix those later. Here I am laying out the vulture. This also has a mess up that's kind of intriguing to see. So I've got two branches actually, one that's going down sort of in the background behind him, and I start to ink it in, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that because it's gonna visually conflict with his tail. And you'll see me fix that here in a minute. I do go back over with this fine liner just to get some smaller lines in there, gives a little more texture that you can't get with the brush. Especially here on his feathers, it adds some good detail, and the branch. Kind of extend some of these out into dead twigs, gives a little more, just a little more variation. Yeah, here I am fixing that line I decided against. And I tried to do some highlights with it on his feathers, but I had to go back over with the fine liner because it was all very rectangular. That whiteout isn't made as an art tool, but it works. And of course you need a little more fuel. So now here I am laying down some guidelines for the words. And these can be rough, it doesn't have to be perfect by any means, but the lines help me at least line up the tops and the bottoms a little bit. And you can see I'm not trying to be perfect on this at all, but a few guidelines, even rough ones, keep you from getting so crazy that it looks terrible when you're done. And yes, I can spell, but in part I'm going to do a little bit of a shortcut, so I didn't put all the letters in. And on Vulture I just ran out of space, so I had to do the E above it. But I'm going to be cutting all this apart in Photoshop and putting it back together. Just inking the other words here. And I did some of these little highlights, but by the time I got into the computer, they just didn't look very good, and so you'll see me fix that as well. These little doodads I drew just thinking, okay, I'm going to scan this page in. I might want some doodads, so I'll draw those. And here we go, get the pages scanned in. In Photoshop, I use this threshold tool. It's perfect for doing inks because it makes every pixel either white or black. There's no gradients, there's no transparent or semi-transparent pixels, and that's exactly what I want when I'm doing inks. You'll see like that extra branch that I had barely showed up after I did the whiteout. And then here I'm actually just painting in some black because I'm going to remove the background around the vulture and around the branch. So all the white that you see around them I'm about to delete, but I don't want to delete what's inside them. So I have to box in any open gaps like that. I had to do the same thing on the letters. I didn't take the time to show it. And then here I am clipping the pieces out. And yes, I'm an S short, so I'll grab the S again, resize it, throw it in there. And you can see that as I resize these, the letters begin to get that soft feathered edge. So I will, once I get the whole cover put together, I use the threshold command again just to make sure everything is either white or black. And then of course I filled in the letters here because I didn't think the white looked very good, so I just go ahead and kind of brush them in real quick. Laying out the elements and adding my signature, that's about it. Thanks for watching.